in the spirit of the summer school that we're at, the James Fintan Lalor event, I'm going to throw out the proposition perhaps that the press barons of today are to some extent latter-day landlords in the spirit of this school, and to suggest perhaps that they have equally as much bearing and as control and influence on our lives and our freedom as perhaps the less benign landlords of yesteryear had. I just taken by a quote I saw recently on the TV clip was that it's good to see members of the media here to report all sides of the story, just in case one of them happens to be true. And I always find that goes down much better when you tell people that Barack Obama said it, and not I didn't come up with that one. But I suppose in the expression, poacher turned gamekeeper, I'm not sure if I was a gamekeeper turned poacher now, as I spent 30 years of my life as a journalist, and the last 3, I suppose, actively involved in politics. And it is for certain a strange relationship, a strange symbiosis exists. Ruth says that politicians hate journalists. Not really, but it is a strange relationship, a marriage of sorts, but not a match made in heaven. It's sort of a relationship where one can't live with them and one can't live without them, and it's certainly not based on trust. And like any relationship not based on trust, I think it is doomed to some form of disaster or other, because it's one that I find in the corridors of Leinster House that is characterised by a two-faced sort of relationship, really. Because what we say afterwards when the person's gone down the corridor and whisper under our breath and shrug our shoulders and roll our eyes is maybe what we really think. But at face value, politicians and journalists continue to have a love-in, as they have to live together. They can't divorce each other because one, I suppose, relies and lives and depends on the other and feeds off the other. I'm not sure if newspapers, as one element of the media, and indeed politicians, have moved quickly enough or sufficiently with the times. I'm thinking that, newspapers continue to have letters to the editors' pages, and politicians continue to hoard boxes of envelopes to post out letters to people in an era of instant fix, instant information, and instant news reporting, whether it's by email or blogs or Facebook or Twitter or the plethora of new platforms that are out there. And, the whole idea of news being reported in the fashion that it used to be, and that people would wait for the paper to come out to see what was going on, or, relatively recent, to get the local paper to see what match fixtures were. That day is well gone and dead and buried, and politicians the same. That all politics is local, that remains true, and certainly I certainly still prefer to get coverage in the Leinster Express than in the dailies. It's nice to get a headline here and there, but if it's not in the Leinster, it hasn't happened, and it doesn't matter what the dailies have or say. And it's quite some time ago since Kenneth Galbraith coined the expression "the global village," but I don't think even he envisaged just how small the world has become in terms of media and information, and how instant it comes. While all politics is local, a colleague of mine, Senator John Kelly, has set off alarm bells in Dublin this week with an interview he gave to his local paper, the Roscommon Champion. And in his head somewhere, I think he still thought he was in Roscommon and talking to Roscommon people, and that they would see this and they would relate to it. But the ink was no sooner dry on the Roscommon Champion than it was up on the Journal, and he was being hunted down to see did he really want Eamon Gilmore to go, as he had told the Roscommon Champion. So that's just how instant news and media travels, and that's the strange dynamic between once you say something now, there's no keeping it under wraps or keeping it local. That doesn't happen. That day is gone. I suppose the other thing that occurs to me is that, by the same token, a strange thing has occurred. I rang a journalist in one of the top newspapers a few months ago. I knew them well. They're a very good journalist. I said, I'll be up in town next week. I just want to chat to you about a few things. We'll come out and have a coffee. I was trying to peddle my wares on a few things that I was trying to push. And they said, no, I can't meet you. And I said, but sure, you're working, yeah? And they said, yeah, but we're not allowed to leave our desk. I'll meet you on my day off. And it's become a strange sort of an affair where newsrooms are now functioning in a strange fashion to my liking. In the past, an empty newsroom was a good newsroom, where the journalists were out and about in the community, out and about at public meetings. Now, more often than not, you're being asked, send in a report, send in a press release, send in an email, let us know what's going on. And I think as that interfaces with politics that we're discussing here today, that's a dangerous development as far as I'm concerned, because it's remote control journalism. They're top and tailing information that is being fed to them. And at a time that media organisations have less and less resources in the recession and coming under pressure to have staff to check and verify things, it means that an organisation or a political party or a government or an individual politician who's very clever and very talented or capable at feeding information or managing information can feed it in to a news organisation, knowing well that it can be published, because newspapers don't have necessarily the resources to go out and about and cover the things firsthand like they used to in the past. I suppose to move towards my concluding point, Chair, that I would say that, the whole phenomenon of, a Murdoch and media moguls, like, it's not a new phenomenon. They've always been with us. But in a small country like Ireland, I think it's even a more profound issue when it occurs than perhaps in the UK, where I think you have the capacity with a population of 60 million people to have counterbalances and counter resources and counterpoints. I mean, newspapers over there, blatantly take up partisan positions with one side or the other. Whereas I think in a small country like ours, where you have a situation where, I don't think Eamon de Valera got involved in the Irish press because he liked the smell of ink or because he liked the sound of a printing press rattling off thousands of copies. People get involved in the media very often because it is a powerful tool, it is a powerful device. And I think that, I would put it to this forum that there's far more money to be made in mobile phones than there are in newspapers. So why, therefore, would someone sink hundreds of millions into owning all the Dublin newspapers and all the Dublin radio stations? And for all its guff, this government, to which I'm party to accept, have done nothing, despite all the promises, to ensure balance and diversity in terms of media ownership and control. And it reminds me of an old Irish press cartoon years ago, where a fella's at the shoe shine stand, and I always count myself as the fella doing the polishing in the shoe shine stand, and his former colleagues in suits and briefcases are coming up to him and they're getting their shoes polished, and they say to him, Jesus, Johnny, the lads in the office are still talking about the day you told the boss to go fuck himself. Now, excuse the language, but the point is that journalists used to be good at that, standing up for themselves, standing up for principles, standing up for issues and things they used to believe in. But it's harder and harder to do that if there's no alternative organisation to which you could get employment, particularly in time of a recession. Where would you go to if you were let go in Dublin in the morning as a journalist? Where could you turn to for employment opportunity? So that in itself is a form of control, and self-censorship then follows, where journalists we haven't got that flexibility or mobility in the sector that used to be there and the alternatives. So I would put it out there that that's a very dangerous environment to be in, and where a government or any government would have a friend with that kind of resource or a friend of that kind of influence, it has profound implications way and beyond the question of the media, because they can decide not only what's printed, but what's not printed. And perhaps even go further as to suggest they can decide who will form the next government and so on. So I don't pin this responsibility on any one man or anyone in particular, because it moves around all the time. Like one man's click can be another man's set of cronies. So I suppose it depends which camp you fall into in terms of whether someone is a good owner or a less benign owner. But I do think there are serious issues at stake in terms of the Irish media at the moment. And while the government have promised for 3 years and will finally next week publish a new consumer and competitions bill, which will cover such things as competition, including within the media area, I believe that that horse is already bolted, and that legislation with regard to media ownership and control is pointless. Thank you.